If you've ever seen much of Sabet's art, you will see that he's very connected to Japanese culture. You are a Japanophile, is that correct? And something like that. Tell us about how that came about.
It started probably with my first trip to Japan when I was like 7 or 8 years old. My dad, again, was an airline pilot. So I did a lot of traveling outside of Iran because I was born and raised. So he would take us to different places, Amsterdam, Germany, places that we had family or friends. And Japan was one of them. I remember almost everything, like the fake food in the windows to the punk movement was huge back then. So you would actually see like all the mohawks and the color and the people with the boom boxes and all that stuff emulating the American culture. So that's kind of where it started for me. I loved Japanese food when we moved to the States. I did karate and I randomly picked Shotokan, which was a very hardcore Japanese style. And I trained till I was a second degree black belt. And then again, since I was a kid, I loved Sanrio, Hello Kitty, cute characters and things like that. 2016 was when I was telling my wife I gotta go. And she's like, look, don't make any excuses about it. Just figure it out and just go. And there was a show I got accepted in called the International Tokyo Art Fair. And I was like, this is it. I got accepted. I have to go. Back then, I thought it was like a really big deal, not knowing it was just an art fair that you paid to play. Some things just feel more magical than they are at the time. And it really was because I took a friend of mine named Mahyar. He ended up filming us there. I have another filmmaker buddy that was just there along for the ride to have a good time with us. So two of my best friends took the trip with me. And again, this is before my healing period, right? Before 2019, where I was still had a lot of anxiety and fear. Travel was not a thing for me. Like if I went to New York, sometimes I would cut a trip short and come back home because of the anxiety. We got to Tokyo and I remember walking onto the street and I told the guys, I'm like, I'm home. Energetically, I'm just home. I'm comfortable here. I'm happy here. Even though I was away from the family, from the kids and the wife and everybody else, I think I had like one little meltdown at the beginning and the guys are like, you got 10 minutes to figure it out. And then we'll see you outside because we're going to be walking.
Right.
And I think just those miles of walking on that land, about 80% of the stuff that I was holding on to just dissipated. And by the time we came back, I think on the 13th day, I was in tears, not wanting to leave. Even though I always wanted to leave everywhere else, I was like, I don't want to go home. I painted a piece there called Snow Monkey because we saw the snow monkeys on top of the hill and sold it for 1,000,000 yen. I always wanted to say I sold something for 1,000,000.
How much is that American?
It was 10,000.
That's no joke.
It was literally a piece of paper. I was rolling it and walking around. It was a washi Japanese paper with my first real Japanese brushes. These art stores are magnificent over there, by the way. 4 or 5 stories of art supplies. Washi paper. You have a floor dedicated to pens, a floor dedicated to brushes, and a floor dedicated to paper. It's just incredible. For me, it was just like I was in a toy store. If you ever get a chance to see a 6-minute video called Sabet in Tokyo, is what my friend made. And so 2017, I had to go back and I went alone. 2018, I took the entire family. So I took all my boys. I have 3 boys. They loved it. And I think my wife kind of balanced out, she's very grounded and I'm all like, so instead of this like magical land, all of a sudden there was more realness to it with her there. So it just kind of completed the cycle for me.
Because you're bringing the wife into your world, right?
Yeah.
Like, and connecting it all.
Yeah, it was like the kids, the wife. Have you ever been to Tokyo?
No.
No? Chris?
Chris, I think he's lucky if he's been to Newark.
There's a city called Nara, Nara, and there is a place where we went the first time. And if you see the video, you'll see it's very magical. There's these deer that are just hanging out, hundreds of them in this park, and they interact with the humans. They'll come up to you. You can feed them these biscuits. They bow down. They bow to you. They like constantly bow. It's really magical.
Wow.
And there's a huge temple at the end that you can go visit. It's got the biggest Buddha. I take my wife and kids. By the time we get there, it's like 6 o'clock. She's exhausted. They're hungry. I hand her biscuits to feed the deer. And they're biting her on the leg. And they're like all over her. And they're pooping and pissing everywhere. Like, what the fuck is this? Get these disgusting animals away from me. So there was this like instant realness to like how she saw it and how we experienced it the first time. Was like, what just happened? I thought this would be like a magical moment. There was a realness to it when you see it through someone else's eyes. I absolutely cherish the experiences of Tokyo and Osaka and Kamakura, which is an amazing place. In 2017, before I went, I remember walking around the house and I out loud said it to myself. I said, I used to be a Shinto samurai.
It's so funny you just said that because my next question, Chris, back me up, line 89. Do you believe in past lives?
Yeah.
Is there something about Japan with that?
Absolutely. I have a friend, he's an artist. He paints women and cats and stuff. He's amazing. And I go, Sosuke, I used to be a Shinto samurai. He goes, no, you're a Shinto with samurai spirit. Me too. I go, oh, so we're brothers. He actually practices the samurai bow and arrow. There is definitely a feeling of a past life. But then again, if you believe that everything is happening always at the same time, then it's really not a past life. It's a current life, probably on a different timeline playing out.
That's interesting. It all makes sense if you look at it that way.
So I do feel really connected. I love the culture. I love even, I'm not a very disciplined person when it comes to like organization and stuff like that. But once I used to put on that gi and put on my belt, there was this like, snap. I mean,
Reverence for it's like respect.
absolutely. And then also, like, there was this warrior spirit that turns on. Like, my eyes just, my wife calls it crazy eyes. My eyes change in the way I shift. I can be very, very, like, crazy aggressive. And one of my favorite things was to sweep someone and see their legs go in the air. And
It's a focus.
it's a focus. Yeah. And being a kid who was bullied a lot, whether it was because I was from Iran or didn't speak English, I always thought I had like kind of the Karate Kid story that comes from a different place. He's being bullied, asked my dad to get training. I trained at this dojo where I was like the Karate Kid. I became one of the best nationals and internationals and everything else. Looking back at all the trauma I got from like the sensei and everything else that happened in that,
Right.
I'm like, holy shit, I wasn't the Karate Kid. I was the Cobra Kai. I literally was raised Cobra Kai. There was times where I had to be like the tail end of that. 20 black belts would line up just to beat the shit out of me.
Right.
So it was straight up Cobra Kai.